Hi everyone, and welcome to Billy Fitzgerald Golf. And tonight I want to talk to you about how your shoulders work and how they play a major part in how the club works, how your balance, and how your hips work and rotate. So before we get into the effects of how your shoulders work, let's talk about how they're supposed to work. So if I get into my posture, obviously I don't stand straight up and down. Okay, so when I get into my posture, my hip sockets go back and my shoulders work over, and my spine angle is at a tilt. Okay, so my spine angle is not straight up and down. When my spine angle is at a tilt, it's important that my shoulders work around that tilt, because golf is not played at a level or standing up position. It's played at an angle. And so that's how your shoulders need to work. They need to work at an angle. So when I swing back, if I get into my posture and I swing back and I hold the golf club out like this, my shoulders have to work at a 90-degree angle of my spine. So when I get to the top of my swing, my left shoulder is much lower than my right. And then I come back down, and when I finish, my right shoulder is much lower than my left. So your shoulders are constantly working this way. If they're not, it's going to cause a lot of problems in the three subjects that I just suggested at the beginning of the video, and we'll get into that here in a second. But first, we need to make sure that your shoulders are working correct. So I think the biggest thing why people have trouble with this is that we walk around and we look at the horizon. So if you can see in the background, we've got the top of the trees and the horizon. So this is what looks correct to us. So when you swing and you swing at an angle, what happens is that changes. The horizon and your perspective changes. So when you swing, it's almost like your brain doesn't like that, and it gets a little complicated because we walk around most of the time, our entire life, with the horizon. So one of the biggest mistakes I see is that when people stand up or their head moves up, what is happening is their shoulders are going flat. So when they get ready to go, and when they swing back, their shoulders go flat. Okay, so we're going to get into what that causes, but just know that their shoulders look like this instead of this. So when you look at, again, how we're set up, if this is my spine angle, okay, and my shoulders set on my spine angle like this, they need to rotate back and then through. So they're working again. So what doesn't happen is that my shoulders don't do this. So you can see with this spine, it's going to straighten me up. Now I've got a low point problem where my club is going to bottom out. The other thing that's going to happen is my hips are going to push in. So the minute I do this, now things get really, really complicated. So the first thing that we're going to do is take the club out in front of you, grip in here, and feel how when the club works, when the grip works up, your right shoulder follows and your shoulders follow that club. One of the things that you're going to notice, we'll get into now your hip rotation and how your hips work. It's going to be the same thing with balance. As my shoulders work on this level, again, right around my spine, I'm able to get my right hip much deeper than if my shoulders were to go flat. The minute I go flat with my shoulders, this left hip wants to go forward, this right hip doesn't move at all. So if some of you are dealing with a right hip issue where you know you want to get your right hip back, and you're doing everything you can to do that, check your shoulders. If your shoulders aren't steep enough, that right hip's never going to go back. I don't care who you are. It's just how the human body's built. So make sure that if you're going to get this, you want to get this right hip back, and you're having a tough time, see, if I go flat, there's no way I can get this back. So make your shoulders go steeper and down, and you'll feel how this right hip gets much deeper. Now, with that segment, it goes right into the golf club. How would that affect the golf club? Well, the club, if I just stand here and just make the club go, just swing back and forth, the club's going to go, because of my posture, on a natural arc. Okay, if I start swinging back and all of a sudden I stand up, the club wants to go off of that arc, because now it's not moving around the same center. This center, my spine, because my shoulders went flat, this spine has now made the club go into basically into a new circle or off kilter. So when the club, how it helps your club is that when I swing back and my shoulder goes back and up, which allows my right hip socket to go back and up, now the club can go freely more on its natural plane line. So again, that's how it helps your hip, that's how it helps the golf club, and finally, of course, it's going to help your balance. So again, right out of the get-go, when we get into posture, because I want to feel balance in my feet, as much as my hip sockets go back, my shoulders go forward. Okay, that's a counterbalance. That's what I want to maintain as I swing. So when I swing back, if my shoulders go flat, of course my hips are going to go underneath me, and now I've got the club pulling me back over here, and now I'm probably going to come over the top because now I'm really off balance. So we have to maintain those counterbalance. So again, as I swing back and I get ready to go, and I start to swing back, as my shoulders get steeper, see my right hip will go a little deeper now, so I'm still over my golf ball. I'm not standing up. So my hips are back and my shoulders are forward. So again, I'm much more in balance. So again, if your golf swing feels not great underneath your feet, you constantly feel like you're fighting your hips, you're constantly feeling like you're fighting your balance, go ahead and put the club out in front of you and steepen your shoulders. I would highly recommend filming yourself, because what you're feeling and what it actually looks like almost always is completely off. So what I would do is, we're going to do 3 swings, 1 ball. So the first swing, we're going to do with the club out in front of you and feel how the club goes up. The club goes up, so I can feel my hip go back. Now I'll take 1 practice swing and feel as my shoulders go down, this right hip socket can go back. So as my shoulders go down, my right hip socket can go back. Now we're going to hit one. So again, we'll get ready to go. Now with your hips in your setup, make sure that your hips are pointing down, so that, again, they're 90 degrees with my spine. Now I'll get ready to go and start to feel, make a practice swing as my shoulders get a little steeper. Now my hip socket can go a little deeper and the club can start working on the correct arc. So go ahead and hit one. So my shoulders are going to be a little steeper. Hip goes a little deeper. And now I feel much more imbalanced. Now, if you want to think of, how your hand works and your shoulder works, that's okay too. So again, if I get my club in my hand, I can also feel, again, this is just another way to feel it. I can also feel as my left hand pushes down, it pushes my shoulders down, which puts me into a steeper position. Now I can get my right hip to move back again. So we'll do that again. Get the club out in front of you, feel how your shoulders work. Because now if I get here and I look, the horizon's completely different than when I would stand up. So now I'll make a practice swing and feel my left hand push down, which pushes my shoulder down, which now I can get my hip socket much further back. I'm going to have a much bigger turn, and also, again, a lot more room for the club to work. So again, we'll get ready to go again. And feel how your left hand pushes down, and it pushes my shoulder down, and now my hip socket can go way back. So again, if you're feeling off balance and you feel like you've hit you're stuck with what your hips are doing, you want to feel like your hip sockets are working back away from the ball, and it just, if your shoulders aren't right, it just feels terrible. I've been there before. And if you get yourself on video and your shoulders are, again, what I would do is draw a line on your spine, or even see how your shoulders are working in relation to that spine angle. These shoulders are a huge deal, how they rotate, the angle they rotate, and make sure that they're, again, going around your spine at a 90-degree angle. It will completely change the balance, the club, a lot of things in a good way of your golf swing. So give this a try, and I hope we get you back out there and shooting lower scores. Hi everyone, like and subscribe to my channel, Billy Fitzgerald Golf, for all tips on golf. If you'd like a live lesson or want to send me a message, visit me at billyfitzgeraldgolf.com.